Come up on today's edition of Haff In The Morning. Donald Trump was nearly assassinated this weekend. Or was he? Hillary Clinton is email. Well, let's try that over. Let's do that over. Blah, 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 blah. Take two in 3, 2, 1. Coming up on today's edition of Haff In The Morning. Donald Trump was nearly assassinated this weekend, or was he? Comey says Hillary Clinton is innocent again. And an update on my car situation. Details on these stories, plus a whole lot more, on today's edition of Haff In The Morning.
And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
You just don't get it, do you? You don't.
What is going on? What are you doing?
I need a holiday. A very long holiday.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
I'm sorry. All I heard was blah, blah, blah.
Of course you can.
Help me help you.
Don't ever do that again.
You do nothing that I say.
Why are you the way that you are?
I'm pretty tired. Think I'll go home now.
Any questions?
Good Monday morning to you, my friends. Welcome to another edition of Haff In The Morning for the 7th day of November, 2016. It's the day before the big event for us political geeks such as yourselves. Okay, armchair political geek, as tomorrow is the November general election. And today is the last hurrah by the major candidates running for political office. And no doubt Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton will be making their pushes really hard today. And I know here locally in Kirksville that one of the candidates for Missouri Senate, Jason Kander, will be in town in about 45 minutes from now at our normal start time on Haff In The Morning. I, of course, won't be able to attend because, well, I'll be running errands around that time. Yeah, right now you're listening to another recording, but it's just a little after 7 o'clock in the morning as I'm producing this particular segment that you're listening to right now on Haff In The Morning. Assuming that I started this thing at 10 o'clock. Because, well, my new set of wheels is should be ready to roll this morning. I got a new timing belt put on Friday morning, and I test drove the car. Passed with muster. It needs some new tires, but the car's in decent shape and is drivable, far better than my Neon, which is a funny story. Of course, you all heard, if you listened to my episode a week ago yesterday, I think that's when I talked about it, in which the Neon, well, went kablooey. And I won't relay that whole story because it'll take too long. Well, anyway, last Thursday, I wanted to get the car off my company parking lot because it had been sitting there for 5 days at that point. And, it's taking up a parking space. Now, granted, a Neon's not that big, but a parking space is a parking space. And considering the construction mess that's going on out the plant expansion and all that, it's still taking up room, and it's not fair to people who have a legitimate need for parking space. And here I've got my derelict sitting there. But anyway, that'd be a good name for a Dodge car. The new Dodge Derelict, guaranteed to break down every 100 miles. Well, anyway, as luck would have it, a former coworker who I never worked with directly is responsible for a lot of the hang-ups that I was not even aware of. Well, I find out Thursday morning through my roommate, his ex-wife's husband works for the car dealership where I'm getting the car from now. Anyway, my roommate called this guy to find out what was going on, and said, I found out Wednesday at night, or early Thursday morning, that the reason why they couldn't tow the car then, because it was not drivable, it's not safe to drive, and I wasn't sure that it would hold up. Well, anyway, my roommate called this guy and said that when they got the truck relicensed a few months ago, this former coworker had set it up and reclassified it for a certain weight class so that no one else could drive the damn thing out there. So in other words, they couldn't tow a car illegally. So if something went wrong, they would be in a lot of trouble. So they had to figure out another way to get that car out there. So they arranged to get another trailer out there. Well, when they came and picked up my car Thursday night around 8 o'clock, the car dealership guy told my roommate's ex-wife, why don't you just get in there and drive the car on over, no big deal. Well, the car started up, and she started driving it, realized the brakes were shot, almost got hit by a truck. I thought, oh my God, I'm so glad you didn't get killed. It would have been bad. And then on top of it, I would have been in trouble, of course, because the car only has liability insurance. And so anyway, they got the car over there, and thankfully no one got hurt. But I said, well, the car's not drivable. The car is not drivable. All right? I didn't feel that I had to explain that much. I mean, I thought I told them that, the brakes were gone, but I guess that message didn't get relayed or something to that effect. So anyway, that's the situation on my set of wheels. And I tell you, it'll be really nice to finally be able to be mobile on my own again and not have to rely on a taxi cab or walk wherever I need to get to, because we're getting to that time of year where it's going to get nasty. Now, the weather this year has been really screwy. Normally by now, it would be bone-chillingly cold outside. And it's in the mid-40s as I'm producing this particular segment, which is about normal, but we haven't had a hard freeze yet. And we're heading into the middle of November. What's November 7th? And we haven't had a hard freeze yet. Now, I'm glad my sinuses aren't acting up, because there have been years where I would be miserable. Normally, August and September is the worst for me. Now, I've had minor issues, but it is unusual to be this warm, and not have frost or freeze. We've had light touches of frost, but it's the kind that you don't, you can just scrape off the windshield wipers. You don't need a scraper. Well, let's see. We'll get to what's on my mind here in just a moment. More of what's on my mind on the program. In the meantime, though, it's time for a new segment on the program, on the weekday segments. And let me pause that. And it's called the Top 5. Well, it's a different Top 5. Let's see. Let's give it a different name. How about, let's see. Let's just call it the CNN Top 5, okay? It's time for the CNN Top 5. Anyway, on the CNN Top 5 for today, learned overnight that Janet Reno, was America's first female attorney general, but she's remembered for two of the biggest controversies in the 90s, the Waco standoff in 1993, wasn't it? Or was it 92? I'm trying to remember what year it was. And the Elian Gonzalez raid. Well, she died this morning at the age of 78 after a long battle with Parkinson's disease. And, wow. That brings back a lot of memories on both ends, and especially the Waco standoff. I remember studying that big time in college. Also, Campaign 2016 is wrapping up today, and tomorrow, as a matter of fact, FBI Director James Comey rocked the campaign again this weekend by clearing Hillary Clinton of any wrongdoing in that new batch of discovered emails. Comey said most were duplicates the FBI has already seen. Secretary Clinton made no mention of the all-clear because the last thing she wants to talk about is her emails. So, there we go with that. Now, on to other matters. ISIS, first Mosul, now Raqqa, Arab and Kurdish militia groups, backed by the United States, are prepping to hit the heart of ISIS in Syria. Officials are telling everyone to be patient, though. It'll take some time for the forces to take and hold villages in the countryside before they can take on ISIS in the city. The man accused of chaining a woman by the neck inside a shipping container on his farm may be a serial killer. Police found multiple bodies on realtor Todd Kolkep's property over the weekend, and he confessed to killing 4 other people 13 years ago. In total, he may be connected to at least 7 homicides. And finally, it looks like President Daniel Ortega, remember him, will win his 4th term in a landslide. And this time his wife, Rosario, will be at his side to having to hold power as vice president. Nicaragua's constitution bars such nepotism, but for some inexplicable reason, the Supreme Court says, yeah, it's okay. We'll go along with that. Yeah, we have no problem with it. Ha ha. And anyway, there's today's top 5. All right, on to the matters that are on my mind for today. And what was all that commotion going on in Reno over the weekend? Referring to Donald Trump's rally Saturday night in Reno, Nevada. And man, when I first saw the video footage, I'm thinking, what in the hell is going on here? His big mouth finally got him into trouble. It really did. And then as I studied it, after I played it again, watching it, maybe my cynical nature about Donald Trump, but to me it looks like the whole thing was a staged event. Hear me out. This is my conspiracy theory. I believe this thing was a staged event. We'll probably never find out for sure. Maybe it'll come out years later. Who knows? But in my opinion, this was Donald Trump's way of trying to win over voters with one last big hurrah. Think about it. The man is a showman, all right, to a certain extent. Granted, an amateurish one, a very juvenile one, but he's a showman nonetheless. And what better way to gain sympathy than the sympathy of the American ignorant than to almost die a martyr? Because if Hillary Clinton had been in a similar situation where she'd been someone tried to take her out, he would be cynical about the whole thing, especially if it was a staged event. Let me mute that one. Anyway, to me, I believe this was a staged event. He is going to lose the race. There's no doubt about it in my mind that he's going to lose big time tomorrow. Which reminds me, I'll talk about that in just a moment. But anyway, Donald Trump is going to lose big time in the political race. He knows that. His supporters know that, whether they'll admit it or not. And so the best way to gain sympathy now is to die a martyr, or better yet, to survive an assassination attempt. So they plant this guy in the audience. What was his name? Let's see. what was the guy's name? Kreitz was his last name. Oh, where was it? Austin Kreitz. Or is it Kritis? Or I've never listened to how his name is pronounced. Well, anyway, suppose this Austin guy was a plant in the audience, and the Secret Service is what I can't quite believe, though. Maybe they were in on the dark, because I can't believe they would go along with this, because to stage this as a political event, that's the only thing that doesn't add up. Because the Secret Service would never go along with this under any circumstance. Okay? So that's the only thing that doesn't add up in all this. Which makes me believe this was a genuine fear by the Secret Service. Maybe they saw him. But when someone yelled a gun, that makes me think, well, maybe someone in the Trump camp planted this person out in the audience to shout gun. And maybe because they realized that there would be anti-Trump people out in the audience. So it makes me think that this whole thing was a setup. But I doubt the Secret Service was in on this. Knowing how the Secret Service operates, I can't believe they would go along with this, especially under the current administration. Now, there are those in the Secret Service that don't like the president, but they're still sworn to protect the president at all costs. And those that they are assigned to protect. But still, I believe that this whole thing was a hoax in Nevada over the weekend. But again, as I said, time will hopefully reveal the truth about my conspiracy theory. Which reminds me of something that happened last Thursday night, rather briefly. I was at work, and I'm not going to call out any names, but it still bugs me to a certain extent. Especially in this area, a lot of people consider me an ultra-liberal, and I admit I am liberal in many areas, but I think of myself as a moderate, okay? But to certain levels of thinking, I am an ultra-liberal. Anyway, I was reading over CNN News on the internet, checking out the headlines and figure out what was going on. And a coworker came up to me and said, to the effect, you believe what you read there, Joe? And I'm thinking, why would I doubt these news sources? I might question their approach, but the level of hatred and belligerency toward mainstream news sources really gets to me. Now, I admit I have my issues with some of these sources, especially if their bias is overwhelming. But I guess as having worked in news, I know how newsrooms work, and I know how advertising plays in that. And one of the reasons why I got out of the news business professionally, that is, getting paid for it, was because I disagreed with the management of the company that I was working for. Because one of the dumbest things I ever heard of was, and I understand their point of view to a certain extent, but during a political campaign season, such as what we're in right now, I was not allowed to even talk to political officials, such as a state representative running for Senate or anyone on that level on a non-official basis, or even on a semi-official basis, because it might be seen as favoritism, that it might affect advertising dollars. And here's what happened. 11 years ago, the state representative in this area, which was then the 2nd District, I think we're still the 2nd District. Well, anyway, the state representative was unable to run for re-election in that office because of state term limits. We have term limits here for state office in Missouri. So he was running for Senate. The guy's name is Bob Boehner. And anyway, Representative Boehner, he and I talked occasionally off the cuff with each other. We developed a rapport. Wouldn't say we were friends, but we developed a rapport because one of his mentors in that office was, is a second cousin of mine who was also a state representative, Don Summers. Well, anyway, Representative Boehner was running for Missouri Senate that year. And the funny thing is, when I got accused of showing favoritism and of putting this guy on the air and talking about his political race, Representative Boehner and I never once discussed his run for the Missouri Senate at all, officially or unofficially, to each other until 2 months after I left KRX. And the only time we discussed it was the time I ran into him at Hy-Vee one afternoon, and he lamented that he lost the race, and I expressed my sympathies. But that was the only time that he and I ever discussed that. But anyway, getting back to my comment, do you believe everything you see and hear on the CNN? I thought, I don't buy into all these conspiracy theories because, well, there are certain nuances into writing a news story. And to interject your opinion all the time is not news. Now, I admit I wax poetically with my opinion on this program. But when it comes to presenting you the news, I will present you my opinion where I think there are flaws. Yes, that's part of that nature. This is my editorial segment. But when it comes to presenting you the news, I keep my opinions out of it. Okay? When I present sources like CBS, CNN, or whatever, Fox News Radio, yeah, I have my issues with those sources. But I believe in presenting you the information. But this notion, though, that they're out there trying to brainwash people, yeah, they're trying to influence you to a certain extent. But I don't think there's this covert operation of them trying to dominate the world. But still, it just rubbed me the wrong way and amused me at the same time. But anyway, that's where we stand with that. Let's see what else is going on here. It's kind of a fluff story. It's a fluff story. I think I'll go with this one. Anyway, over the weekend, it was also revealed, and I'm sure this is going to be part of that conspiracy theory, because late last week, many conservatives who had bad-mouthed James Comey for basically giving Hillary Clinton a pass, back in July about the email scandal, were praising him, saying that he did an honorable thing, and the Democrats were largely like, "Why are you doing this now, you jerk?" Now, yesterday it was announced that Hillary Clinton's emails, there's nothing nefarious in there. These were largely duplicates of what we've already seen and heard. And now it's back to, the GOP hates Comey, and the Democrats are like, okay, we're cool again. Or it's like, okay, knock off the nonsense. But from the moment they secured a warrant, dozens of FBI agents worked night and day to analyze a trove of messages that were originally thought might have helped advance the probe of Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server. Well, the pressure has been intense. FBI Director James Comey told legislators in late October that less than 2 weeks before the election that the Bureau's work had resumed, igniting a firestorm of criticism that his revelation had affected the election. The agents at first, work seemed endless. They had to use special software to sift through 650,000 emails. 650,000 emails. But yesterday, just 2 days before the election, Comey announced that the team had news to share, and after reviewing all of the communications that were to or from Hillary Clinton while she was Secretary of State, investigators concluded, "We have not changed our conclusions." The messages U.S. officials familiar with the case said were of either personal or duplicative in nature than those similar to those found earlier in the investigation. Well, the recommendation marked the culmination of a nightmarish 10 days for the Bureau, but coming 2 days prior to the November election, it also generated renewed skepticism from both political parties about the FBI's handling of the high-profile case. And I admit I've been critical of the FBI's handling of the case, but stepping back and looking at the bigger picture, I think they're doing the right thing. The timing just happens to hurt certain political endeavors, and both major political parties have gotten caught in that wake. Well, from the moment Republicans said the announcement was vague and that they had unanswered questions about how investigators concluded that Clinton should face no charges in the first place, Democrats meanwhile said that they remain concerned that Comey had told legislators so close to Election Day that the email investigation was resuming, though they were heartened to see this matter substantially put to rest again. It's starting to sound a little bit like Steve Harvey announcing the winners, isn't it? I mean, I have to apologize again. Well, from the moment that Comey announced in July that he was recommending Clinton not be charged, the Bureau has been under intense pressure, and Comey at the center of the political firestorm. Republicans had questioned whether FBI agents were thorough and aggressive enough, while Democrats had said that Comey was wrong to offer too much public detail in his findings. When they made the July announcement, Comey opinionated that Clinton and her staffers were extremely careless in their handling of classified information, an allegation that critics say maligned the Democratic presidential nominee without a trial in which she could defend herself. Well, Comey has said he offered so much detail to assure the public that the investigation was handled appropriately without political influence. He testified for hours before Congress about what investigators have found and released to the FBI's website hundreds of pages of interview summaries and other documents in the case. But with his public path came pitfalls, and when FBI agents were looking into allegations about disgraced former Congressman Anthony Weiner and found on Weiner's computer emails potentially relevant to the Clinton probe, Comey had a dilemma. Should he update Congress with the election so close that the Clinton email investigation had resumed, or with so little information should he wait, potentially inviting criticism that he had buried information to help Clinton get elected? After a briefing on October 27th, Comey chose the former, sending a short letter to the legislators the next day saying that the FBI had learned of the existence of emails that appeared to be pertinent to the investigation and that agents should take appropriate investigative steps designed to allow investigators to review those emails, determine whether they contain classified information or not. And I will say this, I've been critical of Comey, but in hindsight, I believe he did the right thing by bringing up the issue when he did. I think it was the best thing to do for the interests of the American people. The election be damned. The people have the right to know. But I'm sure there are going to be people out there saying, oh, this guy is a sellout. The Clinton campaign got to him. Maybe, but I really don't believe that. I just have a hard time accepting that as being true. And I will eat my hat if I'm wrong. But I believe I'm right, nonetheless. Well, speaking of the election, briefly, I will have a live broadcast tomorrow night, okay? Starting at 8 o'clock Central Standard Time, almost the daylight time. We're back into the end of daylight saving time. Anyway, we'll have a live broadcast tomorrow night starting at 8 o'clock, running till 11, giving you election updates and whatnot. It's an election night party coming up tomorrow. And anyway, that's coming up tomorrow evening, a special evening edition of Haff in the Morning. All right, so there are going to be two shows coming up for you tomorrow. I hope you can handle it, all right? But anyway, that begins at 8 o'clock tomorrow evening, Central Standard Time. Well, there are 4,000 people reportedly in a half-mile-long line in Cincinnati last week. And that's not, it's a mixture of good news and bad news. Just days before Election Day, there are so many people waiting to vote in Cincinnati that the line is more than a half mile long as of yesterday. And this isn't unique to Cincinnati. Long lines stretching for hours with hundreds of people waiting for their turn to cast a ballot has been a feature of the final weekend before Election Day. The early voting at North Carolina State University stretched on seemingly endlessly, with hundreds of people waiting Saturday. And when the polls closed in Franklin County, Ohio on Saturday, there were many, many people still waiting to get in. And in Las Vegas on Friday night, the overwhelming numbers of voters waiting in line at an early voting site were of the first signals that a surge in Latino turnout was coming, and that could mean bad news for the Trump campaign. While the lines in swing states such as North Carolina, Ohio, and Nevada have gained most